Good evening, everyone. Very excited to have all of you here today. Welcome to our event this evening. The teams at British Council India, Arts and Culture Resources India, ArtX Company, and the Kala Ghoda Arts Festival are really excited to hold the session on careers in the arts at Kala Ghoda Arts Festival 2021 online. We're particularly excited about this session because when we speak of India, we think of India and its culture and its diversity and its variety. But when it comes to speaking of the arts as a career, there's always this big question about, is it sustainable? Is it going to provide a certain amount of stability? And it's actually in response to these questions that we have put this event together to not just respond to your doubts, but also give you a sense of what careers are there in the arts. Particularly in this case, of course, we're focusing on performing arts, but also at the same time, what are the journeys that professionals in this sector undergo over their lifetimes, and is all of it artistic? So we explore these various journeys through the different realms of performing arts. We've looked at professionals that we work with who've cut across artistic careers, have moved on to managerial careers. We've heard of amazing light designers and people with skills and careers and technical, but have moved into other dimensions of the sector. And here is our attempt to introduce you to these dimensions and foreground different pathways to a potential career in the space. What we do have is an amazing set of speakers who are uh, important achievers in their space, but also at the same time speak very firmly for what the sector has given us and what they have given to the sector. So this session will also offer an opportunity for you to interact with our esteemed speakers that we have today, who are professionals from performing arts industry across UK and India, and seek some inspiration, hear about their stories, hear about their journeys, and learn from their experiences. We have four speakers for you today. We have Ashutosh Phatak of True School of Music. We have Leela Sampson, formerly from Kalakshetra, but also a very renowned performing artist herself. We've got Samira Iyengar, formerly from Junoon, but also leads the SMART program and has had a very, very vibrant career in theatre over the years. And there is Bruce Khatri, who is currently the head of theatre for the NCPA. With that, I'd like to invite Ashutosh Phatak to join us today and give us a glimpse into what his journey has been like over the last few years and where does he find himself today. Over to you, Ashutosh.
Oh, that was very good timing. I just got on. uh, Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here. I've been part of this business for quite some time now, so may have a few things from my experience that I'd like to share with you guys. I started off actually not planning to be in this music business. When I was a kid, I was. I guess product of the 80s where we were very into uh, Gordon Gecko, Wall Street, want to make a lot of money. So I actually went to university to study economics first. I mean, I had a band when I was a kid, at a college band, and we fooled around, we played, but I never thought I'd take it seriously until I went to school. And I went to university because University of Pennsylvania had the Wharton Business School. I thought I'd want to become an investment banker or something like that, as one was programmed to be. And I was fortunate enough while I was studying economics there, I happened to study some music. And I had a punk rock band. I had long hair with Doc Martens and was a punk rocker. But I ended up studying Western classical theory because that was the only thing I could study over there, which I absolutely fell in love with. And so I studied composition. But still, when I came back to India after school, I had not really thought seriously about joining the music business or a career in music. So I did try a bunch of different things, but my heart was always into music. But I never thought I could make a career out of it. I tried. I sold aircraft testing equipment, suitcases. Um, we sold nebulizers. There was uh, I think there's a lot of asthma in this country, so we thought maybe we could make business out of importing some life saving equipment. I ended up being very bad salesman. I ended up doing other interesting things with the nebulizers, but we didn't end up selling them much. But I did my jingles, and I did my music. I had my band, but that was still never going to be seriously done until a friend of mine who was actually in the advertising business said, "Listen, can you just compose something for me?" I said, "Okay, I'll try." I have no idea. It was some. It was a small 10-second commercial for um, Fa deodorant. Okay, it was, and all I had to do was do re mi fa fa fa. That's it in 10 seconds, and I got paid 10 grand for it. Like, wow, it's $1,000 a second. I love this. I think I can do this. I Something clicked in me then because it wasn't what I was doing for as much as the process of composing and creating music that I really loved. Fortunately, I joined at a time when I think there's a lot of work, but not that many composers. So working professionally in this business, so I quickly got to do a lot of advertising work, and weirdly enough, from a creative space, I came from a very purist rock punk background. I said, "There's no way I'm going to do advertising or commercial things," and ironically, that was my biggest education too, because it just opened me up into exploring myself into different genres and different types of music, and I had to do it. I was commissioned to do a job, so one day I had to do a hip hop track, one day I had to do a operatic track, one day I have to do like a jazz swing track. So, and you need to learn all these things to be able to do it authentically. So that in itself was my education, apart from the formal education. And I think formal education was very important because it kind of, I think, a little bit of an edge over a lot of people that were kind of winging it in our school. That's why I'm coming to later on to tell you why education is so important to me. I did that, and I discovered that there was everyone around me was not just doing one thing. Now, this is a very important thing for me to focus on because it was not just about being a musician as how one imagines. When someone thinks about a successful musician, they think about um, A.R. Rahman in India or Elvis or something like that. But there's this amazing bunch of people doing amazing work quietly in the background and feeling really happy with their lives because they're actually making music for a living. I got a taste of that. I discovered that. So to me, the music industry actually is anything and everything that I can produce, compose, and perform music to and for. And that led to a music production company. So we started composing. I partnered with another great composer, Dhruv Ghanikar, and both of us did music for films. Then we started doing music for shows, fashion shows, all kinds of stuff. So anything, any opportunity we got, we took it. And that, one thing led to another, and that led to us looking at what's happening in this country and what can we do to support the industry. Uh, so that's where the idea of Blue Frog came along. So Blue Frog was founded with four other partners to basically try and be a catalyst in the music industry over here, to try and find a space to showcase talent, young talent, and to showcase the audience here with international talent that they don't have access to. And I felt that we kind of succeeded a bit doing that. It worked out. It became a something that people aspired to the stage, and that also showed me a lot of what's happening in this music industry and what is required. And that's when my sound engineer at the time, Mr. Nitin Chandy, who has been with me working with me for a very long time, he came up and said, "Listen, why don't we start a school?" I said, "Yeah, man, that's really something that's missing here because if it costs a ton of money to go to Berkeley and there are not that many opportunities over here." So so we decided to do that, and the True School of Music was born 7 8 years ago. And that school is primarily focused on making music a career. I mean, our whole focus was, if you don't make this into if you don't make your passion into a profession, you're going to keep it a hobby. And we needed a lot more people in this music industry who are professionally trained. That was our opinion. And I think with more competition breeds better quality. So it was more important to create a community of young musicians who can infiltrate and influence the path of our industry. And the school was first started as a music school for professional musicians to upskill. And what's interesting is that when we first started, a lot of musicians who were already working professionally somehow didn't feel the need to upskill. And so we switched that to uh, a school for anyone who wants to be a professional musician. And that opened up everything for us because then it just people came from right after college, right after 12th standard, came join the school. And what we did was we looked at everything that our experience taught us in the music industry and how we could bring that uh, knowledge or that experience into packets of information that we can teach as curriculum. That way, so you can learn exactly what you need to know to be within our industry. And we needed to get faculty. We needed to get people who had studied a lot before. So we got a lot of international faculty down. The point is that I think that what education does, it just offers a very efficient way of learning something, and if we can make it also a stepping stone into a career, if we can bring the industry to the school, all the kids in the school will have a better chance of making it. And we are quite fortunate that our dream is kind of coming true because most of the students are, I would say, employed in some form or the other. Now, we are a freelance business, freelance industry, and what we like to think about our musicians is not very sexy, it's not very passionate. I think it's very important for us to think about the business of music. So it's almost like we call them musicpreneurs. They're entrepreneurs with all these different things that you learn in music as your tools that you can sell. And I think it's important for the kids nowadays to approach the industry with a systematic manner of revenue earning. If you do that, what happens by chance can be something that you can target and actually get. What I mean by that is that I found this natural thing that was happening in the industry that one person was doing many things. And honestly, we are not just one person. We are multiple people in our brains. We're interested in multiple things. And within the whole music industry itself, there are so many different things to do. So we encourage people to be multidisciplinary while studying music. So that means you can be a lyricist, a composer, a DJ, a sound engineer, and a voiceover artist. All are separate, different careers. Now, if you think about yourself and you get an Excel sheet for your life to figure out how to make some cash at the end of the month, you can think about your life like that. How many jingles are you going to do? How many other things that are there for you to do? So, what if you just look at this slide we got here. So give you a little idea of writing a song. Just in the concept of writing one song, there are so many multiple careers. If quick lesson, when you're writing a song, you need to write lyrics. So you can be a lyricist. You're a music director because you're writing the melody, you're getting the tune together. You can be that, and there's obviously multiple jobs within that. Sorry. Not only that, after that you're an arranger. You have to arrange all the music. That itself is a separate job. Then you're a sound engineer. You got to record all that stuff that you're doing. That itself is another job. Or then you're a sessions player, where you're a singer or a guitar player or a drummer. That itself is another job. Then there is the producer. There's a complete musical producer who's beyond the music director. If a band comes to you to say, I want this sound, they produce that. Then there is the mix engineer who finally mixes everything. So just in that one idea of just composing one song, there are multiple careers, and each person is, and you got to discover what works for you. So that's the beautiful thing about music. It's very wide. We're very fortunate. We're very lucky in our creative field that that there is a potential for whatever personality that you are, that you can find something in there. I mean, the list is crazy. It goes from and some of the new stuff that's coming up now, music therapy, to promotions. The music business angle is big. You need to figure that out. So there's just like a big list I can show you guys, but understand that it requires a certain kind of discipline in one sense, and I don't mean that to sound like old school, but what happens is you need professionalism in any creative field, and I feel if you don't have that, you're not going to do well. So when someone joins the music industry, they're not going to be it's not about it's a big party rock and roll lifestyle. I think you need to be able to be serious about certain things, and if you are that, I truly believe that you can have a very successful career in this industry. I'm fortunate. I've had a range of different careers within my one thing, but it one evolved from the other. And I think if you're open to that evolution, there's a lot of potential. Now, and just look, guys, just look at the amount of content that's coming out of this country. There's so much happening right now. During the lockdown, there was so much work happening for a lot of people. Amount of channels, OTT platforms. For every piece of video content, there's some audio content there, and I think that is a space for someone to come and do some work. And live music, by the
Agreed.
way, it'll come back. It'll come back. It's just, and music is always going to be created. It just be expressed and experienced in different ways. So thank you. I hope that kind of
Thank you. No, that was
we got this.
interesting. When we think of music, we always think of like making music, and just to get a sense of the number of careers within that space. And the other thing that you spoke about is being open to the evolution, which in itself is so interesting because unlike other careers, you think of that as a straight line. When
Yeah,
you're an MBA, you'll go into the finance system and you'll have a job, and then maybe you'll have another job, but your career is set. When it comes to creative
yeah.
careers, there is different movements and different branches,
Abs-
and you evolve when you're learning through all of these different experiences, and you realize how it all intermingles with each other. So thank you so much
No,
for
I
bringing
think one never underestimate how one feeds into the other, and I think it's beyond just the music industry itself. I think we were talking about this earlier when we were having a chat. I think I've seen cross pollination between other creative fields within music and so forth, and it's all one at just one creative space. So I don't think anyone should feel lonely in their career in the in the creative fields, because you can always find someone to connect with or find another avenue within that. But I think the creative space is the place to be, because that's human nature, and it
yes.
doesn't go out of style. And someone will always want to listen to some music. And we've out of all the or for all the creative fields, I think I'm quite fortunate to be in the music industry, because I think there's a lot of scope there.
If it's going to be a battle of the creative fields, let's get Samira on board and to hear why she's in. Thank you so much, Ashu. Hi, Samira. I mean, speaking of
Hi,
pathways,
Rashmi.
right? Was moving from like looking at selling nebulizers to like getting this amazing commission to sort of make this jingle or the score, and then there is you who actually migrated from a relatively non-creative field, so to speak. It was mathematics in some ways. So we would love to hear from you about what your journey has been like, and where you find yourself, which is, uh, you know, is it artistic? Is it managerial? What are these terminologies in the work that you do in this theater? And what does the theater space look like in this country? So over to you.
Thank you, Rashmi. I will have an argument with you after this about about the creativity of mathematics, but that is not the space for this talk. Um, Thank you, Ashutosh, for setting up the fact, and of course I'm not in competition with Ashutosh either, because theater is simply the multidisciplinary art, which means that a music person can make music for the theater as well. I don't know if I can make theater for music, um, but before I jump into my journey, which has a lot of twists and turns, I did want to just stop for a second and understand, in the context of the country of India, what is the performance space that we are looking at. Because what's amazing in this country, I was looking at the census for another talk that I was giving, and I realized that India has 1,369 recognized mother tongues and 121 recognized languages. And I thought to myself, my God, each of those mother tongues and languages, and this is at least, right? And each of those will have some kind of performing cultures actually associated with it. And we also are a country where your oldest performing arts form is 2,000 years old. So over 2000 years, you've had forms that continue living, and you have forms that are new and happening at the same time. So, you go from state to state to state, and what you're looking at is tons of performing arts practices, from simple storytelling to very complex, bringing together of music, dance, everything that you can think of as part, speech, everything you can think of as part of theater. Um, what I find interesting in this country is that if you go through villages in this country, you will find that villages have the performing arts as part of their annual calendar. And because they have it as part of their annual calendar, they have performance circuits, they have patrons, they have festivals, they have committed audiences. In fact, performing arts forms like Yakshagana actually are booked 5 years in advance. So there is a career there. There is a there are roles, there are clearly stated are roles there. There is income earning possibilities in places like this. The same holds true for commercial theatre in states like Maharashtra, which have very strong commercial theatre. Again, there are setwalas. There are of course the performers. There are directors, producers, but there are also the setwalas, the lightwalas, truckers. You have allied industries. So you have a whole industry working around this. But the space that I work in is actually not these spaces. The space that I work in is what has been called variably experimental theatre, alternate theatre, non commercial theatre, group theatre, etc. And this is a space, it's a very interesting space because this space actually has been the space that has constantly defined and pushed Indian theatre languages, has constantly found something new. It asks questions, it throws up perspectives, it is not market driven. But it also makes it very difficult for me to think about how do I talk about a career in this space, because if you're thinking about careers only as livelihood, then I struggle, because it's very hard to make a livelihood from this space. Some people do manage, performers really do, technicians will to some extent, but not by working only in this space. So for me, actually, when I think of a career, I have another way I think of the idea of career, and the idea of career is not something that you necessarily make your prime livelihood from, but something that you are deeply committed to. It's what you build in yourself and externally. It's what you grow with. And then, if that is how you think of career, then perhaps my story may have some value for you who are listening. Now, if you had told me in high school that I'd be sitting here and giving a talk on my journey in theater, I would have probably thought you were crazy. But luckily for me, I had a number of opportunities come my way. A bunch of luck come my way, and luckily for me, I never planned very far ahead in my personal life. So when those opportunities came and they seemed good, I just went with it. And I think a lot of people who do work in the arts, like Ashutosh was saying, are people who have been able to do that. Who, because we don't have defined industries so easily in India, a lot of us are creating new spaces. It's really about, in some sense, being in love with the space and following your gut. I was also lucky, and I'm saying this for any parents who are there. I was also lucky that my parents truly believed, my mother especially, who's a teacher, she truly believed that you must let your children do what they're inclined towards, because that is what they're going to be best at, and that's what they're going to lead a fulfilled life with. So, truly I got lucky in that sense. But my segue into theater happened when I went to college and I joined the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. I had gone as a math student, but MIT required undergraduates to take 25% of their classes in the humanities, arts, and social sciences. I did theater because I did not want to read a book. I just thought, let me do something which doesn't, make me go home and have to do homework with a book. But when I started doing theater, I just went from one class to another, and I learned acting, production, script analysis, and then finally direction. And I just found these stimulating, challenging, thought provoking, absolutely delightful words were opening up to me. And I love the intense immersion in theater. I love the camaraderie. I literally thought this is the best form of life education. What a way to live, learn, and grow. So, detour, I jumped into theater. I took the advice of my theater professor and applied to a South Asia department because I knew that I wanted to come back. And I joined the University of Chicago for my PhD. I got lucky with advice there as well. My PhD thesis advisor realized that I was probably better as a field research person, and told me when it was time to define my thesis, told me go back to India, do field research there, and you'll know what you have to do. So I came home. I got luckily my mother knew somebody working at the Seagull Theatre Quarterly and introduced me, and they took me on and said, while you're doing your research, why don't you write some articles for us? And my time with them was critical. They were at that time chronicling contemporary theatre from across the country in their journal, and through them I got introduced to work and experiments from Manipur to Tamil Nadu to West Bengal to Madhya Pradesh, you name it. uh, it was so exciting. The artistic work, the social, cultural, political histories and contexts that informed the work. the way my brain had exploded at MIT, my brain was exploding here again through finding out about all this. And for my thesis, I focused on three areas: Pandwani from Chhattisgarh, and the artist Tijan Bai, contemporary theatre from Chennai, and the artist Kalairani, and a forum theatre group from West Bengal called Jana Sanskrit. And I traveled through cities, towns, and villages with them. And it was amazing because I was watching theatre as a means for changing society. Tijan Bai was the first Pandwani woman performer. She changed the form forever. Now women mainly perform it. I was watching Chana Sanskriti use theatre as a means of public discourse. I was watching new languages emerge by theatre forms talking to each other. And I was realizing how much theatre defines culture, theatre people define culture in India. Anyway, I did my thesis, came back to India, didn't think there were jobs in theatre, and again, luck played in. My cousin was taking a workshop with Sanjana Kapoor. I dropped in to say hello. I had met her during my work at STQ, and I found myself with a job at Prithvi. I spent almost a decade there, and I learned two very important things there. I learned how to put artists and their needs first, and I learned how to get audiences, and I learned the importance of inviting audiences in to share this world. And at Prithvi, I had the chance to play with festivals, exhibitions, citywide arts interaction, all kinds of things. And all the PhD research I had done, all the mathematical training of logic and design and stuff that gets into your brain, all of that I was able to bring together at Prithvi. And that was really exciting for me. And the one thing I want to pause a second and say is that theatre people, I have found theatre people to be absolutely unafraid to back a good idea, to be willing to take the risk, take the step to try something that will strengthen their field. I got that at Seagull, I got that at Prithvi, I got that with the India Theatre Forum, which Sanjana and I helped to co-found. I got that at Smart, collective that I'm part of, and that we run a theatre management course. But at Prithvi, I realized that so many of us in this country did not have any access to theatre. And somehow that just kept bugging me. And I thought, what I really want to do is I want to work on building access to theatre. So Sanjay and I co-founded Junoon with that purpose in mind. And we had a mad dream. We were going to take theatre to everybody across India, and confident that the artists would be with us. We walked into corporate and said, give us money. We have this dream. They said, great dream, no money. So then we jumped, then we said, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. We thought of more affordable things to do, and we ran arts and science addas at three venues across Bombay, which we live streamed. We ran a program for school children, which we took to cities across India. We even developed something called the Junoon Salons, which was our effort to go to business leaders and say, "Hey, look, you don't know there are fantastic arts in this country. Let us bring it to you. You become patrons of the arts because we need patronage." And that is the tragedy, right? That you don't have every other country, so many other countries in the world, the ones you always hear about with theatre, have public infrastructure that is there to support the arts, that have funding for the arts, all of that stuff, and you just don't have them here, you know. So we closed Junoon just at the beginning of the pandemic, and I'm standing here 3 decades working in theatre, wondering how to take the dream that drove Junoon forward. And all I know is that the theatre and arts community has tremendous courage, and they will back the ideas and and experiments to try and strengthen this field. And they don't understand the words "it can't be done." And I've also learned this, that if you want to work for arts in this country, you better really want to work there. It will be challenging, it will be frustrating because very little works in your favor. At times, it will be frightening. It will also be enormously enriching. The field and the people who inhabit it will fill you with an enormous, encompassing sense of life and living. You will live with wonder and possibility. A smile will potentially find its way into your heart and lodge there. If security is paramount to you and all this is too unstable, don't work in the arts. But my request to you is be a friend of the arts. Find a way to stay connected, to stay open and curious about what the arts are doing. And ask people in the arts how you can support them. Um, we need to build these partnerships in the private area because we don't have a policy and a vision as a country. The state is not going to step in anytime soon. If you choose to work in the field as I do, not as a practitioner but as an enabler and an innovator, I have one mantra for you: artists first, audiences a close second. Put yourself at their service, keep yourself open, humble, and curious. It's an utterly glorious way to live. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amira, for what was clearly a very inspiring journey. We've known each other for a while, but I still didn't know some of the nuances of what led you here. And I want to take some of my words back. I didn't mean a non-creative career. I just meant that it's perceived to be as something that's diametrically opposite from the arts. But there's so much of mathematics
That's our
involved,
next talk.
stage design. Okay, we'll fix that another time. But I think one of the things that you spoke about, which resonated with me, as I was mentioning, is just this idea of career as not just livelihoods, but a real commitment. And being really committed to that, and that doesn't necessarily have to be your livelihood, and you can actually support and patronize and work with the arts without having to think of only livelihood as a pathway forward. And the other thing that you spoke about, which I thought was very important, because we do have parents on this panel as well who are listening in, is how do you enable your child to live a fulfilled life? And if creativity and a career in the arts allows them to do that, how do you balance that with perhaps your own insecurity about what this means for their future? And where are the spaces where you can negotiate these insecurities that you may find as a parent, which is also very real. So thank you for bringing that, because clearly you led to be you it led you to a life which you feel proud and happy about. And
Absolutely.
finally, I think, and this is something that I'm really looking forward to hearing from Nilaka's talk as well, is the inclusive nature of the creative sector, that you're able to bring in all other learnings from different disciplines into it, and then see it also grow into a different direction. So it's just been great to sort of get all of this, but also a bit of a reality check that there is a possible livelihood space in the commercial arts space. There is a livelihood space possibly in an ecosystem where there is an acceptance of arts as a career, be it the village economies, but it may not be so in the non-market centric arts, and a huge amount of theatre comes into that as well. So
Absolutely.
thank you for
Yeah.
being honest about that and not just putting a sheen and a glow on everything. Thanks, and
Thank you,
let's
Lakshmi.
let's
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
and let's bring in Nilaka. Love to have you here with us.
Hi. Hello. Thank you, Rashmi.
Thank you. And I mean, we again, when they're usually in the sector, we have this idea of all the careers in performing arts. Theater and dance seem to always not get the kind of importance that music appears to, with its integration with various forms. But at the same time, when you talk again about Indian culture, it's the dance, the form, the ethos that really gets reflected when we speak of it. So it's great to have you here, not just in your capacity as an artist yourself, but also in your capacity as an arts leader, having led institutions. So we'd love to hear from you about your pathways, your journeys, and what does a career in the dance space look like for someone.
So,
Over to you.
thank you, Rashmi. First of all, I'd like to say that the dance world itself is so, so eclectic, so huge. India has the classical arts sitting on the peak of the mountain, uh, pretending that they are the only people there, but actually, there are the tribal forms, there are the folk forms, there's the martial art forms, there's the religious forms, there's the cultural spaces. There's dance has found its expression in every layer of India's society. So I cannot be in any way represent all of these, but my love for them and my interest in them, of course, is led me to ultimately chair the Sangeet Nat Academy, and the exposure to India's arts, all of them, theatre, dance, music, and was just the most exciting time. But let me say this, that all of us uh, don't come into these fields because we inherit them. Unlike in let's say business or medicine even, or engineering, it's usually not so premeditated. It's sometimes accidental. It's fortuitous sometimes. It's usually a twist of fate. And mine was something like that, because I come from a defense background. I come from parents who knew nothing about little or nothing about the India's arts. And in the summer of '61, I was introduced to the Western School in Chennai by my mother, and left here to wallow in it for about a year during our war with China. Uh, but I came here and I just loved the institute. Kalakshetra was idyllic. I think it's given to very few children in this country to have this idyllic life. It was a return to the ashram way of life, a return to a nationalistic um, uh, endeavor on the part of Rukmini Devi to try and recreate an Indian form of education. And she was more interested in a new or an old form of education for children rather than only the dance that she is known for. I loved it because I didn't have to wear a uniform. We walked about barefoot in the sand. We climbed trees and stayed there longer than we should have. We slept on the floor on mats. We ate on the floor. We started the day with prayers from all the religions. She was a theosophist. Dance and music classes were after school. 3 days you did sport or any kind of sport activity, and 3 days all the boys and girls had to do some form of art. So it is amazing. But we also sang bhajans, we learned kritis, we learned the theory of dance from the Abhinay Darpanam and the Natya Shastra. We studied realms of Sanskrit shlokas. We also did spinning and weaving. So she had her eyes set on her. We had, cattle in the institute. We had animals in the institute. So it was definitely a return to India's traditional ideals and a way of nurturing the child to live simply, but to have very grandiose ideas in creative processes. But in the arts, I have to say this, that the screws are tightened very surreptitiously almost by the gurus. Almost unknown to you as a child, you start off having a lot of fun, which I did till I finished school actually. But the older you got, the more responsibility you took. And you were taught the art of self governance, which meant that you took responsibility for your day, for your processes in that day, and your future. This really held me in good stead for the rest of my life. Classes were fun, but also very hard. In the arts, you have to expect that. Our teachers were young but very strict. Rules were rules. By the time I finished school, I had completed a diploma course, a very covetous course in Bharatanatyam. But I had no reckoning of it. I didn't really appreciate that I had, such an important degree. It's only when I went to college in Sophia in Bombay, it took a nun to hit me on the head and say to me, "You have a diploma in Bharatanatyam from one of the finest institutes in India, and you want me to give you a seat in the science course. Uh, Go home, think about it, and come back." And she actually put me on my path to being a dancer. Because 2 years later, my guru called me back, asked me to travel with the company abroad, and that was the beginning of my realization that I was actually, it's only when I did my post graduation, I did another 7 years of study in Kalakshetra. And I only left in 1975 when I went to work and teach in Delhi. I started my career at Bharatiya Kala Kendra. I did 15 years in what you might call one of the post-independent independence institutions. I want to tell people here that there were some of our oldest institutions were started pre-independence in the 30s, like Shantiniketan, Kalamandalam, Kalakshetra, etc. But there was a whole host of them that were begun after, like Darpana and Ahmedabad and all that, and Bharatiya Kala Kendra in Delhi. That was started at the insistence of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And so these institutions are still there for children to come and learn from. And they all go through, in my opinion, waves of good teaching and not so good teaching, because you're teaching in any institution, the institution is only made up of the people who are there. And so from the very great stalwart gurus, we now have people who are willing to give an institute a chance, or most people in India, and I have to say this, that irrespective of the large number of institutions in the country, the health and the wealth of India's arts are managed actually by that individual teacher teaching from home. And this is a very important thing, because you're talking about grassroots level teaching across from villages right through to right up to the big institutions. I took over the reins of Kalakshetra for 7 years, my alma mater, and that was a very challenging time. We were trying to pick the institute up from a kind of lethargy it had sort of settled into. And this happens when the founders pass on and the older realm of teachers move on. I also served as chair of Sangeet Nat Academy, as I mentioned earlier. And now I have an independent life with my dance company, Spanda. I want to say this very quickly about your options. As a soloist, your life is lonely and tough. So you better be very physically and mentally tough. Be ready for a very to sort of. I think you have to embrace loneliness because your decisions are your own. You must be prepared to live a simple life. This does not, however, stop you from dreaming, from having a prolific creative mind, from collaborating with other musicians and dancers. Uh, Now you also have an opportunity to join an ensemble. If you join an ensemble, you must be prepared to join the line, figuratively and symbolically. But here you have to compete with other bodies, and those bodies are sometimes better than your training. So you can actually up your game by being in a really good ensemble with a really good choreographer. Um, what has dance taught me? I think the biggest thing dance has taught me is to have a philosophy about life, to look inwards while you also look outwards at all the variety that India has to offer in the arts. You can communicate with any other art form through dance because you have costumes, you have lighting, you have architecture, you have iconography, everything that you learn, Vedic studies, mythology, you can become researchers. And I've put down all the various options that you do have. But you have to love what you're doing. I think everybody here has said that. You have to be in love with what you're doing, and you must be willing to get your hands dirty because when you collaborate or when you try to learn new forms and new things, um, the money is not the reality is that all your money goes into reinvesting it into your costumes or your musicians or your next production or whatever. But what you get in return is a great joy, a wonderful creative journey, uh, a freedom of your spirit, the ability to dream, to imagine, to make happen. The reward is in the making, and you are the boss. You make or break yourself, your career.
Thank you so much, Leelaka. That was such a wonderful way of giving us and sort of peek into what's it been like for you. And little did we know that there was it was that nun in Sophia's college who actually set you on the path that you found yourself in. And look where it took you, and look where it took us. We had you as a chair of the
You need
SMA.
to be hit, you need to be hit
Incredible.
on the head sometimes.
But one of the things that you spoke about is something that I took away very strongly is the health and wealth of the arts is by it's sort of in the hands of the individual teacher, and we think of the arts sector as being run by these big institutions, which of course have their place, but the individual teacher is equally important in that, and that could is
Even
also
in
very yeah.
Yes, Rashmi, even in an institution, it, the one or two good teachers are the people who keep the institution alive. I have to say this very frankly. Um, uh, so, institution building has been, if you look at India, you'll see that institutions were built by the imagination and of one individual, usually, even in the sciences. But maintaining institutions is really not our forte. We lack administrative ability to keep the dream alive and to keep this wonderful or very delicate balance between creative processes and good sound. You know, Everything else, administration, economics,
Yes,
this that. But
yes,
also you can't forget the educative process because the
hmm,
arts are really teaching children how to become whole individuals. I don't think you
yeah,
can be a whole individual without a creative process as part of your education. And so that's where
yeah.
dance teachers have to become more responsible.
Yeah. And I think the new education policy, which specifically focuses on the arts is definitely a welcome direction for us to take. And you
The
spoke,
world
you know,
over.
yeah, you spoke absolutely on point also about arts administrators. I mean, I'm not sure how many of our audience members know, but we don't have a formal degree in arts management in this country. While we have
We
several
have some
degrees,
courses.
we have some
Yeah,
courses, yeah,
no,
but
we have,
yeah,
but they're very few and far between, and the government has not really got their act together about creating, really good courses for the arts. It's a tough one. It's a tough call.
yeah,
It's not
it
an easy
is.
one to create. Yeah.
So it's both a land of opportunity in terms of the formalization of the sector when you have the structure that management brings to a certain extent, but also the fact that we have such a wealth of other institutions and
Oh, yeah.
which tend to be aesthetic and artistic led. And it presents its own set
Yeah.
of challenges. So it's great to sort of get that perspective from you. And I'm really looking forward to our next speaker and, just to bring Bruce Guthrie, on screen to sort of connect the dots that, or rather the line that Leelaka has drawn about the artist as an artist, but also the artist as a manager, and the multiple roles that you have to play in that career in the arts. Maybe you start off in an artistic space, but then you have to move into other contexts and spaces. So, Bruce, just would love to hear from you about what that has been like for you to begin with as an artist yourself, but then moving into the directions that you did, and finally in your current role as the head of theatre at the NCPA. Over to you, Bruce. I think, Bruce, you're on mute. You may have to unmute yourself. You can just.
See that that's a rookie mistake there that I've made just to kick things off. But
Also,
thank you
that's
very
the
much for
most
having me,
famous
and it's
line
been
of 2020.
a yeah, it's been a fascinating talk so far. So I hope I can add a bit of value to this. I just want to start by saying this is that I'm a director, but that I've done multiple roles in the creative industry, but that also in the business as well of putting on shows. I've worked in multiple levels, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But that I just wanted to start off. I've actually the presentation that I've created has got 3 quotes from an unlikely source, which is Henry Ford, the inventor of Ford automobiles, and I'm going to start with a quote from him, which is, "If you think that you can do a thing, or if you can't do a thing, you're right." And the reason I start with that kind of quote is because in the arts, mindset is often everything, and particularly in the last 12 months that we've had, that our mindset and our ability to endure and to stick with something is incredibly important. And it's been something that I've found in my career has been utterly vital to its success so far, has been my ability to be able to stick with something and to continue pushing with it. It's really, really important that young artists and young people who want to get into the arts realize that that it's not necessarily all glamour, and it's oftentimes you're not doing the thing that you really, really want to do, that you're passionate about. So you have to find ways to continue on your journey and to keep going, to realize your dreams, because in the absence of what it is that you want to do, there is what you can do. And the whole job is working towards the thing that you want to do at the level that you want to do it. And that's where the learning, that's where the refinement, that's where the training happens. And that's been very, very similar for me in my career, is that I've wanted to do shows of a particular type at a particular level. And my taste and that my feelings have evolved as my career and as my journey through life has gone on. And all of those different journeys, all those different experiences all add to you, the artist. Because you, the artist, are your clay, you, the artist, are your canvas, and you have to then create from experience, from imagination, from inspiration outside of yourself. You have to learn about empathy to be an artist, because you have to see the world not only from your own point of view, but from other people's points of view. And that's particularly true in theatre, because in theatre is that unless you're a playwright or unless you're devising a piece, you're an interpretive artist. So you're not writing the piece. That's what the writer does, or the composer, or the lyricist. Is that we take what they have created, the world that they have created on the page, and that we then interpret that for the stage, for an audience. I'm also is that, you know, I work at the National Centre for the Performing Arts, and I'm the head of theatre and film there. And I'm delighted to report that in the past 5 days we have gone back to doing live shows at a 50% capacity at the NCPA, and that they have been sold out, and that the response from the crowds has just been sensational. So going back to your point at the beginning of, you know, well, why do arts matter? Are the arts sustainable? Is that I would actually say that the arts are utterly vital because of what they do for the people who are in the audiences, but that also what they do in terms of the economic ecosystem, the greater economic ecosystem, and how they feed into that. So as you can see on screen, is that we have a pyramid, and that there are some 50 roles that go into getting an actor on stage, and that this is by no means an exhaustive list of that. And I'm just going to go through some of them very quickly because it's about the theatre economy. What you see on stage is just the tip of the iceberg. So you can see the blue tip of the iceberg there, which is the performers and the creative team that go into making that happen. So you've got your actors right at the top, and that they're the people that your audience pay to come and see. They put on the play, they put on the musical, they put on the show, whatever it is. But then beneath that, you've got the director, the choreographer, the musical director, the producer, the stage management, the composer or lyricist that's there as well. So you've got that creative team which sits in your production and creative. You then got your technical creative. So you've got your lighting design, sound design, set design, all the people who go into the aesthetic of it, and your backstage team as well, your stage management, your makeup, your props, your costume, all of that stuff all goes into making this happen. Further down, we have the venues, the place that the event takes place in. And you've got your venue managers, you've got your ushers, you've got your box office manager, you've got all of these different people, security, stage hands and crew, carpentry, technical technicians who will make sure that the lights and everything all work, who make sure that everything's happening, cleaning, also catering, also bar staff as well, who all go into making that happen. You then have your associated support, which then goes into your legal, it goes into catering, it goes into much larger kind of like aspects of what makes a production happen. Your logistics, how do you get stuff to and from the building? And that then you've got the wider aspect of it, which is all to do with your audience. It's to do with travel, it's to do with people going to clubs, going to bars, going to restaurants, hotels. All of these different businesses all benefit from the creative art itself and the happening of the event itself. So I would say that not only does it need to be, is it sustainable, I think it's vital to our ecosystem. And that goes for cinemas, that goes for all arts and entertainment. It has such a big reach beyond the walls of the theatre itself. For us at the NCPA is that we cover a vast array of different genres. So we have Indian music, Indian dance, Western classical music, Western music, photography, theatre and film. And all of those different disciplines are artistic in their own way, but that they also offer a lot of opportunity for interaction for the artists points. There are lots of youth clubs, there are youth theatres, but there's also just going and just watching that by the end performance. And at that point, I knew one involved in the arts and some people are interested. I did my programs for singing. It was an incredible moment in my life, and it was at drama school when I trained to be an actor. That then I ended up deciding that I wanted to be a director, and it was there that I started to learn the craft of directing. So those entry points, the watching, the passion for it, is where it all starts. Many people start off wanting to be performers, and they find their way as they go. Be useful would be the other thing that I would say. In my journey is that I found that being curious about everything, or as much as you possibly can, is utterly vital. So read books, go and watch plays, go and watch musicals, go and watch live music, read poetry, look at paintings, learn about them, learn about why the artist created them, learn about what it was that they did and why they did it. Learn about history, learn about politics, learn about musical instruments, play a musical instrument, learn languages, learn about language itself. Where does the etymology of words, where do they come from? Travel, see the world, experience other cultures and absorb yourself in them. Process and craft are vital to a professional. Talent unrefined is a waste. You have to practice your craft in order to gain the consistency that is required in order to be at the top level. So surround yourself with people who help you towards that goal. Surround yourself with people not only who are positive about you and what you do, but that who can help you along that way. If you surround yourself with people who are naysayers and who tell you that you can't achieve something, chances are you won't. Which leads me to my second quote, which is, it takes me back to the Henry Ford quote of whether you believe that you can do something or you can't do something, you're correct. But also is that quality means doing the right thing when nobody's looking. You will achieve quality by doing the right thing while nobody's looking. Practice, absorb yourself in the art, spot the opportunities, because that's where the real talent lies. Spotting the opportunities that are around you and stick with it. If you want to do this, you have to stick with it. You have to want to do this more than anything else, because there will be times where it'll be hard, and those times are where your stoicism will get you through. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruce. We started with Ashutosh giving us a sense of the amount of careers that are there in the music space, and just like songwriting as an example. And then we're ending with you giving us a sense of what does the theatre economy look like. And, we hear these buzzwords, but we don't often recognize what these buzzwords actually are. And what you are speaking of is contributing to what we call the creative economy. We think of, again, arts is only artistic careers, but that is one part of a career in the arts. There are several more that feed into this creative economy. I think it was Sanjoy Roy from FICCI who recently, brought up a statistic which said that one job brings you about 999 jobs. One job in the arts creates 999 jobs. So it's also the economic impact of the creative sector, which in itself is not understood. And I think by what you shared, you give us a sense of what it takes to put that one actor on stage. So thank you for sharing that. Unfortunately, we don't have too much time left. We have only time left for one question. So I do want to let the audience know that if you have questions, share it on our Instagram page, and we will get you the answers after speaking to our panelists. But the one question, which I think is a very important question that we have, is from Snehi, who asks, should an aspiring artist fear uncertainty and have a plan B? So,
I'm happy to go for that one. This is something that I hear all the time. I have the polite answer and I have what I believe is the real answer. From my opinion, if you have a plan B, you'll end up doing plan B. So
Yeah.
if you really want to do something, you find a way to do it, and that's how you need to figure that out. But I think as what all of you have said, and Bruce said so very eloquently, that if you need to want to do it badly enough in the first place. So it's a fantastic field for you to be in, to immerse yourself in all these creative fields if you're passionate about what you're doing. But plan B, not sure about that.
Yeah,
If I can add,
I'd say that even if you're thinking of another plan, you're wavering. You
Yeah.
have to be ready to take the plunge, and then stay with it, as you said. You've got to
But you know
stay the
what,
course.
what is amazing is what I've heard from everyone, that even within our own spaces, there are multiple other ideas and things you can explore. So it doesn't mean that that first thing that you think about is the only thing you got to do. But to be in the creative space, there's so many different things that are available and possible, and you'll find your way. But that should be the
And
plan.
most people don't,
but
most people don't know that there are multiple
I
things that
think
you
I
can
think
do.
that was the biggest thing that I learned. I was like, man, we're just
Everyone
doing music for jingles,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do think it's really
Performance.
important that people. I do think it's really important that even if you don't, I mean, I don't think you should have a plan B because you will do plan B. I completely agree with you. It's you need a full commitment, especially because the field is tough. It's especially because it's not a field that's going to promise you financial security or even wealth, right? But at the same time, I do think it's really important to stay open and hungry and skilled. You need multiple
Yes.
skills,
Oh, yes.
and that is
Yes.
actually
Yes.
possible from within the arts itself. It is possible from
Yes.
whatever
Yes,
background you did, and it's possible within the arts. But you need to have the hunger for learning everything to its utmost, because those skills are going to help you with your livelihood. And I think that's very important to keep in mind. Yeah. If you
Absolutely.
want to say, like, if I do this, this is the next thing that's going to happen. If that's your personality, then it's going to be tough. If your personality is one of enjoying the twists and turns, and even if you have security, you'll still be miserable sometimes. So frankly, it's what you choose. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
So
yeah,
as most of you have shown, there is enough within the space to actually provide for livelihoods as well as a commitment, and there are options within the space that allow you to go in different directions. So it's not like that's the only pathway you're going to be opting for. But
yeah.
I would like to thank all of you for such an amazing session, and truly inspiring one. To see you actually pursue and commit to your commitments, and get us to this other side where you can actually speak to other people and give them a sense of what this space could be like. So Ashutosh, Samira, Leela, Bruce, thank you so much once again for being with
Thank you.
being with us here today. And I would like to also thank the Kala Ghoda Arts Festival team, Nishu, Brinda Miller, the 70 team. Thank you so much for Meera Warrior. Thank you so much for hosting this session. The British Council team, Rian D'Souza, Vernon, everybody at the British Council India team, and the ACRI and ArtX team. Thank you so much for making this event happen. Please do send us your questions. We will get them answered. Let's have this dialogue ongoing, and you'll hear from us very soon on more sessions. Have a lovely week ahead, everyone. Good night.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Thank you so much. Good night, everybody. Great to see all of you guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.